Hi everybody, I'm Beebs Kelley. Thank you for joining me for another video. Today we are talking about the Sussexes. They seem to have a tendency to operate as though they are still in the 90s or maybe the early 2000s. They haven't seemed to update their approach to certain things, particularly when it comes to communications. Lots of things have changed since we all started wandering the world with smartphones in our pockets. And one such impact is on known people, famous people, celebrities, royals, those types. They aren't just recognized in public anymore, but now everybody can immediately inform paparazzi or press what you're up to. People can take pictures and send it and sell it even. Paparazzi and fans are able to gather as soon as somebody who is a known figure's whereabouts are known. Posts are made immediately, and because of all of this, a great deal of privacy has been lost since back in the 90s or early 2000s, before everybody had smartphones and internet and social media was like it is today. People used to be able to get away with some degree of anonymity a little bit more easily, a little bit more often than they do now. At least everything wasn't documented to the extent that it is now. And this element seems to be a big problem for the Sussexes for a few reasons. They seem to sort of forget and also be unaware or unable to grasp just how much documentation people have at their fingertips, how much people know and can easily verify and remind themselves of immediately. They also seem to serve up sound bites or get behind causes and talk about causes or movements in an equally outdated fashion. As we discussed with Meghan's South by Southwest video, we talked about just how outdated her approach to a lot of these social issues is. It's also hugely problematic for the Sussexes, or perhaps most problematic for the Sussexes, because of their contradicting statements. Now, people can cross-check Harry and Meghan's so-called facts, can try to verify Harry and Meghan's versions of things, which leads people to discover their lies. It's just all far too easy now and streamlined for people. Therefore, the Sussexes haven't quite realized that they actually can't complain about privacy while simultaneously divulging their feelings to the press. They can't take private jets while claiming to be eco-warriors. They can't stay on Instagram if they position themselves against fact-checking being eliminated, because people just plainly see it. All the facts are out there for everybody at this point, and it's so easy for watchers to get the full story and all the background information super quickly and immediately come to the conclusion that Harry and Meghan are full of it. We've seen the royal family adapt. For example, Prince and Princess of Wales have sort of led the way with the royals as far as social media posts and using video format are concerned. They're far more often making these sorts of posts. We saw Queen Elizabeth II and now King Charles release televised speeches fairly regularly, with Christmas addresses annually and other important announcements throughout the year. However, Catherine and William have done video messages and just simply use video format alongside their social media posts with greater frequency and in a way that aligns with their age group and the younger population, of course. The Sussexes have definitely tried to copy this technique. We've seen, like with their year-end video, for example, on their Archewell website, but to much less success. Part of that is because they don't realize the lack of substance is easily uncovered, but also because the Sussexes lack direction. Their sort of chaotic lack of purpose really comes through in their videos. The royals, when they do their video messages and whatnot, it's usually very focused on like one thing at a time, while the Sussexes seem to just put together montages that feel more like social media compilations of all their selfies that they pay a videographer to take of them. The royal family have also sort of modernized their approach to their work. We saw King Charles sort of start down this path many years ago, and Catherine and William have taken it further, getting more involved in just a few select causes in order to maximize their impact, rather than having a smaller role in a large number of causes and patronages. While the gravitation away from a super long list of patronages has been criticized by some, it does make more sense to the public today who are watching the royals operate. The Prince and Princess of Wales have been able to show valuable contributions to environmentalism, early childhood development, the arts, and homelessness, and they're able to build momentum over the years, which the public can plainly see. It helps people visualize the royal family's value and positive contributions to culture and society when those results are more tangible and there on these websites to see and find easily. That's a great advantage that the Prince and Princess of Wales have had, and King Charles, as he kind of initiated this sort of approach in a lot of ways to the small role in many long lists of charities. That sort of used to be the way of doing things. Now, because we have so much more access to information, it's so much more important that the substance is easily identifiable. And the way that Catherine and William have approached things, it's very clear and obvious what they're doing and the impact that it's having, the approach that they're taking, and how it's working. And they're very forthcoming with that information, and it's very direct and easy to find. You can easily locate the early years projects and get way down lots and lots of rabbit holes and research studies and things like that, and contributions that have been made over the years. That is something that the modern day public can really get behind and respect. We have seen how lots of tiny contributions, that sort of approach, comes up short now in today's culture with the Sussexes, because they seem to be doing that sort of a vibe now. They're kind of sprinkling a tiny bit of, well, it's not really even sprinkling, it's like taking a handful of sand and just throwing it, and tons of little chaotic things going everywhere. That's what the Sussexes feel like with their approach to things, because they're trying to dabble in 3 separate areas at once: commercial ventures that make them money, philanthropy that they're not very good at. They're doing lots and lots of different little philanthropic things and projects that aren't very focused and aren't having a very big impact. It's all too chaotic. And then they're also trying to do sort of celebrity stuff. So it's not really coming across to the public very well at all. And people are left confused what value the Sussexes are actually providing, if any, and how any of this is working in the public's favor or the group's favor that they're claiming to support. This is yet another area where Harry and Meghan are simply tripping themselves up. They were sort of starting from scratch when they came over to California, with the exception of Invictus Games. So I think some leniency is deserved, but in their ambitions to be seen as still doing royal work, they've created a very muddy image. Very chaotic, very all over the place. Their visits, their publicity pieces, they don't really make much sense. None of it's cohesive. They're trying to do many little things that are spreading themselves so thin that we, as the public, cannot find any clear accomplishments or contributions. We can't find any value brought forth from the Sussexes to really anything that they're doing. Supporters of the Sussexes might point to last year as an example of doing better in this department. For example, the Meg showed up for the Mina's List dinner twice last year. But we are unclear what contribution the Meg actually made on Archewell's behalf. Did she donate supplies? Did she donate money? Mina's List was already established, so the Meg isn't the reason they come together. It leaves us with the impression that the Meg only brought a cameraman and a scrap of fleeting publicity to Mina's List, rather than any real value. Sure, anyone who happened to look at People magazine that particular week saw the article, the pictures, and the headline, but Mina's List, the charity serving the network of women who resettled from Afghanistan, they weren't featured in the headline. It was the Meg. So how much value did Mina's List get from that publicity? Not much is the answer to that question, it would appear. Instead, this whole event seemed to have mostly benefited the Meg by creating her image as doing something more. And I'm not criticizing Meghan Markle getting involved with causes or community. Not at all. It's great to contribute and get involved in things, in groups, to learn about different cultures, but from the perspective of lots of seemingly random, very, very low impact visits, it's clear that the public doesn't view that as very valuable compared to getting deeply hands-on involved in just a few causes and being able to not only appear well educated in it, but to have successes to show for it. Things actually getting done, the way we see with Prince William on Homewards and Earthshot, Princess Catherine with her arts and photography support, early years development, and her early years project with Shaping Us campaign. That is what makes more sense to the public now. It reduces the room to criticize these people or view it simply as a publicity stunt, because when you can point to these initiatives being rolled out, the information campaigns being supported, research studies being funded, awards and grants being handed out annually, the way we see Catherine and William doing in practice, when the public sees all of that substance, it doesn't need to be defended. It's clear that they're actually doing some things that are good. It's not just for publicity. But those little low value, low impact things that Harry and Meghan are doing, a little bit here, a little bit there, a tiny bit there, almost nothing there, it shows that it's low impact. There is very little value being delivered. People respect the approach of somebody really trying to solve something, and people understand now more than ever just how much time and dedication it takes to actually make progress on these sorts of issues. They're very complex issues, and it does take a lot of education. And it's just impossible, it's illogical, impractical for Meghan and Harry to think that the public will assume that they know stuff about any of these subjects. Because they are so spread thin, there's no possible way for them to be well educated enough on these issues to have an impact. To further muddy the waters, the Sussexes are also trying to live for a profit while they are running a foundation, which also operates in a profitable for the Sussexes sort of way. The Archewell Foundation was conspicuously established in Delaware, wherein only 5% is required to be directly given to charitable causes, which sees the Sussexes able to and actively paying their own expenses for all of these events. The clothes, the cameramen, the paid-for publicity, the travel. And by paid-for publicity, I mean paying for articles to be ran on websites and in magazines and in articles and whatnot. The travel, the hotels, the meals, all of that can be billed to Archewell rather than Harry and Meghan paying for their own way to get there and just showing up on their own dime, which we have seen their expenses are often far excessive to what is necessary. And so they're really using Archewell to benefit themselves and their feelings of self-importance as well. It's not just for charity. It's for the Sussexes. And then they're also doing deals on the side, like Harry working with Better Up. Yeah, Harry working for Better Up, Meghan with her Netflix nonsense. The consensus of the public is that wealthy, privileged people wanting to lead a more private life is not newsworthy, nor is it problematic. In fact, many people were happy to hear that the Sussexes wanted to live a more private life somewhere else because they weren't very good at the job of working royals, and they were causing lots of problems and a thorn in their side for their brother and sister-in-law, and probably for King Charles as well. Even a couple who decided to do that, go and live privately somewhere else, and then happened to find purpose in continuing to contribute their time and their extra funds as patrons to any number of charities, be them wildlife preservation in Africa or the arts in Los Angeles, that wouldn't have raised any eyebrows. None whatsoever. We can isolate the errors in the Sussexes' approach to their philanthropic adventures almost exclusively to the lack of substance and value, as well as the often hypocritical absence of living as you tell others to do, not leading by example, one set of rules for me and another for thee, and the constantly publicizing it as more than it was, as what obliterated respect for the Sussexes' efforts. We've seen Harry and Meghan clearly lacking direction and scrambling to find a way to pretend to do what the royals do, without the values behind the work. It falls flat. It's not received well by the public, who this day and age know too much ultimately. The public can see plainly whether your values back up and align with your public-facing stuff. Branding is much more important than it was in the 80s and 90s because people do have so much more access to information that when you contradict your own brand, you get the Sussexes. A lack of respect, unpopular, disliked, and completely floundering. So while updating their approach and taking into account the sheer volume of information people have access to and just the way people operate now, it's clear they have a lot more legwork to do on the back end of that. In addition, thank you so much for joining me for today's video. Please leave your thoughts and comments in the section below, and I will see you next time. Have a happy day, everybody. Bye.